Yeah.
Well,
and one of the things I wanted to do, and I talked to Michi about this when I did the episode with him, was like, I don't want to ask the same stuff that like maybe the magazine or the newspapers asked the same time over and over again.
Yeah. That they're tired of answering. Yeah.
There's like all these people in the town that like people have known, people are aware of, people like people and they don't even know why they like them. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I think like just shining a little bit of light on like the backstory of like why we're all here or have been here or still gravitate back, it's kind of the point, I guess, of doing this, other than just like highlighting people that I've known for a long time.
Yeah. But some people still don't know a backstory, so it's kind of, you almost have to go through the basics of who you are, what you're doing, how you got here, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
For people that might be new to the podcast.
Absolutely. Man, I went to LVX last night. Yeah. Are you familiar?
Of course.
And
pretty nice.
I know
setup,
you know Bernard.
I do.
And I told him that I was interviewing you today, and we were reminiscing. And I invited him on too. I want to talk to him. I've known him since I was like 16.
Everyone's known him.
And a real similar connection to how I kind of met you. They had Intense. Do you remember Intense?
Yep. For a blip. Yep.
God, dude.
Yeah.
So Shannon James and James Moyer, I think, owned the shop, and then BJ worked at the shop. And we were talking about it last night. I was like, oh man, when I met you, you were selling blue headlights, and I was like 16 years old and bagging groceries at Gerb's. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? I just stopped throwing newspapers.
Supply and demand, though. We weren't doing those kind of accessories, so good for them.
Oh man, I loved Intense, dude. That was really like my introduction into what like an aftermarket shop was.
Totally.
And it was so basic when they were doing it before Craig kind of reimagined it and did Midwest Auto Sports and stuff. But I mean, if you were, a teenage boy going to Rockbridge between 98 and 2000 and you were into cars at all, that was a really fucking cool place to hang out.
It was the only place.
Man.
And we had so little. I mean, without traveling to KC or St. Louis or...
Yeah.
No one had inventory,
Yeah.
And even then they didn't have inventory. You'd sometimes put the deposit down. It would be in on Thursday and you couldn't sleep till Thursday to get some blue headlights.
Exactly. Fingers crossed that something bad didn't happen.
Or gold kit or rims or you name it.
Gold kits.
Gold kits were the way. Yep. And wood grain dashes.
Gold kits and wood grain kits. Man,
wood knobs, wood steering wheels, anything Nardi, Fitty, Fittipaldi to be specific.
Man, so tell me, that's something I'm very curious about, and we'll get into like your whole history and stuff. But like Pro Street, how did that like come about, and how did you get involved? How did you segue yourself into managing? The car stereo shop at the end of the 90s, which I think is like, the early 2000s. That's like early 2000s, late 90s is like peak aftermarket era especially for automotive audio.
I guess there's a little bit of a backstory I need to tell because when I wound up peeling out of college, going to Kansas City, I worked retail a couple places and then eventually scored a great job at a place called CPS, which CPS was the distributor for Sony, Kicker. I could name 15 other lines. It doesn't matter right now. Phoenix, actually.
Yeah.
And then wound up working for them for a while, then got recruited out for another place called SPD, Santa Fe. What was it? Doesn't really matter. Santa Fe distributor, who also had much bigger lines. So I came from a distributor level. So a lot of these accounts all across Missouri were people that I was selling to. Now I'm just a kid, on
was
the phone.
Was your interest with like consumer electronics and car audio there before the job, or did the job come along and that was your introduction?
Well, that's a quality question because really when I hit college, I was just so focused in boom cars, man. I mean, that's what I was at. I'm 19, 18, built a system myself. And what's funny is I only stayed at college for a year and a half. And my last semester, I remember it pissed my parents off so much because I was taking classes that I didn't have the prerequisites for. I'd never gotten to algebra or whatever the calculus class was. But the professor let me sit in. It was like theory of acoustics, acoustic of sound, and stuff that I was interested in. And even though I didn't understand the math.
What school is this?
Warrensburg, good old CMU.
Okay.
Yep, back in the day. So they let me take these classes, which is silly because I gained the knowledge, but I got 0 credits, which of course pissed my parents off. They were catching the tab.
What are we paying for? Yeah.
But it got me aimed to where I wanted to go. And then I peeled out, went to Kansas City and started my first job at, I was 19, man. I just kind of set out. So it was a passion that I was pursuing, if you will. I'm not saying it was a smart passion, but that's what I was interested in. And I was stubborn and I'm not, that led me into the retail story that I just told, which got me into the distributorship level. And then So fast forward 5, 6, 8 years or so, I stayed in Kansas City till probably, I don't know, 96, 97. I'm born and raised around here, so I wanted to get back down here. So I specifically started grooming a couple of shops down here. Columbia Photo was about to peel out their audio side and make Pro Street, if you will. So it just seemed like a great fit, and came down here, dove right in, and just kind of kept going, if you will.
Did you have a relationship with the owner of Columbia Photo? Like, how did that happen? How did you make
Tom
that?
Atkins is the owner, but at the time, Brent, I can't remember who it was, but yes. And not only do I have a relationship for him, for years I'd sold them product. Whenever they needed something, they'd give me the PO, and my company would ship it to them. And then every once in a while, if I was coming in for the weekend, I'd run stuff to them, just because I'm like kind of an excuse to get to Columbia first.
Big gray Hummer back in the day. Columbia Photo and Video guy. I can't remember. I thought this guy went to my church, and I thought for some reason he drove a big Hummer.
I know who you're talking about, that old guy. Gosh, I don't remember his name.
He was like a survivalist guy.
He was.
Yeah.
And just the persnicketiest guy, too, because he was in the photo lab. But, he had the H1, and he was big on all that survivalist stuff.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, I don't think he really let us do anything. He wanted to keep everything factory and stock. But, I don't remember us putting a system in it because I think his name was Dale. Doesn't matter. Doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
So, but he was an employee of Columbia Photo, but on the photo side, but never in the car audio side.
Gotcha.
So.
Okay. I was always curious about that. It's those little things that, like, I've been wondering about this for 30 years,
hopefully he's not listening, but he was a quirky dude. But he loved hanging out up there. He had the coolest car that everyone, turned their heads on.
This was in, like, the mid 90s, like late 90s, like no civilians had H1 Hummers, dude.
Not at all. And,
at all.
And I do remember he was asking for a couple of things to be put on, but he was so worried that we didn't understand the schematics, and we don't get to work on those cars.
Right.
So we had the right staff to do it, but at the same token, he wanted to oversee it. So I don't think he ever did anything other than just let people look at his Hummer. Gosh, that was moons ago. I've forgotten about that.
Yeah. So this is like what year that Pro Street is like developing? They're getting ready to like launch.
Ooh, I'd put it around 96, 97. And they had an audio shop in Columbia Photos, main 10th Street Audio, whatever.
Is that what it was called?
It was
before?
called 10th Street Audio.
Okay.
But, that was the problem is you've got legit, and when I say legit, non-kids, non-boomers, that type of stuff, coming just to get their photographs and buy VCRs and TVs.
I remember going to Columbia Photo and Video as a kid. My parents would get film developed there.
100%.
And it was so cool because they had like TVs and camcorders and VCRs and like, in the 90s, anything with buttons on it, like,
So that's the bulk of their clients, though. Yeah. So your moms didn't, mom and dads didn't want to be put off by kids in the parking lot booming and screwing things up. So they just needed to get, let's just say, that element. They wanted to get us out and to a different location. And frankly, we were doing enough business for them that we deserved a different location.
Sure.
So a little gas station came up at 1206 Rogers. I think Atkins owned it. Don't know what he was doing with it.
Yeah.
Converted it into audio shop.
That did used to be a gas station back in the day.
It did. Matter of fact, when we took it over, the lift still worked. So we'd run our cars in there.
Oh, in the garage.
Yeah, 100%.
Nice.
It had a true hydraulic lift, which is great. We didn't really do a lot of neons and that type of stuff, but I can't tell you how many employees, including myself, changed their oil there just to throw it on the lift, lift it up, get it at waist height, and go. So,
no, absolutely.
Good little location.
Oh, man. It was great. And, man, I just remember I was talking to Bernard about this last night, man. It was so... It would have been so easy back in the day. It would get so crowded in the lobby of that place.
Yeah.
And I used to come in there like during like my lunch break or like AUT. If I had like time to get from Rockbridge over to Pro Street, I'd probably go over there with like Danny White or Tim Whitby or one of my really good friends.
Those are some names. Yep.
Dude, Danny White's my brother-in-law now.
Yeah, great. Yeah.
Yeah.
These are all names that have been 30 years past, man.
Yeah.
But some of these are coming out of the woodwork.
And, you guys were busy. And we'd come in and we'd just like kind of stand around and almost do nothing. But
it was a cool place
to
hang.
We needed to like absorb that culture at the time. And it was, I was just telling BJ, it was so great that like people weren't like, get the fuck out, like we're too busy for this shit, kids.
We love the company though, and it was kind of cool. And customers that might, I don't want to say kick tires, but it might take you 10 visits before you saved enough money to get your amp, or something like that.
Oh man, I remember so many people, dude. I mean, like, Dead Sound Performance. People used to like get out of prison and come see Mark before they'd see their mom.
Yeah.
Like, oh man, like they'd come and like figure out the plan for what the next car was going to be.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Like
Oh, yeah.
that culture, I think it was real easy, just like, the late 90s, early 2000s, like, oh man, this is like a great business. It's a lot of fun. But there was a whole entire cultural aspect to like aftermarket, and it's car culture at large is what it is.
Global. Yep.
But even like, Car Stereo has its own like little world.
Yeah.
So you're getting like, it's kind of like a tree growing roots at the time, where it's like whole car culture, and then like of course like the import scene is coming in really hot at the time.
Sure.
And all of these things are happening. So it's just like a really exciting time. It was a great time to be like 16, 17 years old.
Absolutely.
Amazing time.
That tree branch you're talking about too, it's nice that it also, expanded out to, SPL categories. So it was just how loud can you get it? Who cares about quality?
Yeah.
And then the Iasca, the true sound aspect of it. So it was nice to be, I was a judge on both, and there's no judge on SPL meters. You just look at the dial and tell who the banger is for the day. But, the Iasca side, when you actually have to break down a car and talk about its imaging and its staging and that type of stuff, it was kind of nice to be a judge. And I got shot all over Missouri just because my ears were good. You know? So I knew what good was and I knew what bad was.
I remember seeing installs back in the day, guys would have like 64 channel 64 band EQs, like in a car audio system, and be like, man, and I was always like, why does he need that? Why does he need that? It was a big part of like starting the curiosity and expanding that, like, why does this work and why does this do this and why is it necessary at all?
It depends on where you're chasing, because time alignment, digital time alignment really changed the game of audio, because all those EQs are great, but when you can digitally delay the furthest speaker from your ear to match the quickest speaker to your ear, if that makes sense on this podcast, that really puts the image, if you will, right in front of you. So that was if you were chasing that way. And ironically, those systems
car
were so
audio
much
at
more
the
expensive.
time, I mean, like a factory car system was so bad that I mean, doing anything would like really step it up. But I mean, if you were getting into doing stuff like, like line level preamps and like capacitors and like that kind of stuff, you could really go down the rabbit hole and make something amazing in a car.
And it really starts with your first purchase, because as soon as you go from a factory head unit to an aftermarket head unit, now you want new speakers. Now you got new speakers in a head unit, might as well get an amp. Now you got an amp, you got to get a sub. Now you might as well support the sub with a capacitor, distribution block, blah,
My
blah,
mom
blah,
had
blah,
an
blah.
89 Ford Taurus station wagon.
Those are awesome.
It was great. It had the bench seat in the back that faced backwards, had 2 seat belts in it. And that was like what I got to drive in high school. But I mean, it would legally sit 8 people. You could have 6 in the front bench, 6 in the middle bench, and then 2 in the trunk. And I convinced her. We did it at D&M. I got a Kenwood head unit. I was like, CD player, Mom, for the car. Be great.
You need this, Mom.
And
I know.
After a while, it was my sophomore year, and then going into junior year, it wasn't cool to drive the Taurus station wagon anymore.
If it was booming, it was cool.
And that was the other thing. I couldn't put anything else in it. My mom was like real restrictive about that.
That makes sense.
So I started driving my dad's 89 Corolla. It was a 5-speed 89 silver Corolla. And we swapped the CD player into that car. And I started driving that car junior year. And then one day we took it over to Danny's house after school, put 2 competition 15s in the back of it.
Changed the game, didn't it?
And put kicker impulse mids in it, just running off the head unit. And I remember I was like, all right, I got to bring this home now. I got to like convince my dad.
Oh, which I bet he loved. I don't mean to stop your story, but I bet he did.
Well, I opened the trunk and he was like, I can't put anything in here anymore. And I was like, Dad, let's listen to Mozart.
Yeah. Or anything.
Yeah. And he was like, I guess you can keep this.
And then secretly taking the car from you on Thursdays.
Yeah, no, I mean, I hijacked his car
and
and literally put 2 15s.
See, and that's
in the Corolla.
Everyone loves good sound. So even though he's paying the tab or whoever's paying the tab.
Well, and I mean, just in him allowing that to happen, I had to tiptoe my way into it. Like, Mom, we should put a CD player in your car, you know? And then, I'll move the CD player into the cooler car.
Yeah.
And then what else can we do with the car? You know what I'm saying? And Dad's like a little bit more lenient than Mom. There was a whole, finesse to it that had to happen or it wasn't going to happen,
I get it. Especially when it's their car.
Yeah.
I get it.
Well, and those were the first 2 cars I dabbled with. And then the summer before my junior year of high school, I bought this car from a guy that you know really well. His name is Seth Brown.
The Altima? Oh, I know that car.
Let's see, where did the Ultimate picture start? So you can start flipping through.
Oh,
and
yeah,
some of this stuff,
totally
the clear taillights, that was an addition I did.
Sure.
The Lexani wheels came after because they were Nieper wheels on the car when I bought it from Seth.
And those solid looking ones,
I
man.
traded those Lexani wheels to Ben McVeigh. He got the synchros and I got the big chrome.
Man, I love the dash to this day.
Yeah. We painted over the wood and redid the air vents and painted the center armrest, and
we did a lot.
That car had a lot of neon in it,
had a
and
lot of
remote start, and
this was kind of by no means the guinea pig, but if we had something new, we're like, Seth wanted to buy it, we get comps and stuff that was at a discount, so we would let this be kind of our let's mess it up kind of car. That doesn't mean you got a messed up car. But this thing had so much equipment in and out of it, it wasn't even funny.
I bought that car. The day that I went and got my senior pictures taken with it, we left, I think it's the Knudsen little gallery, the one that was next to Cosmo Park.
Yeah.
And the transmission overheated and melted. And I remember I bought the car from Seth for $4,500. And the transmission was $3,000 to repair.
I love Seth. Seth's still around, too, as you know.
I was going to ask you, have you talked to him? What is he doing these days?
He's actually, if I'm not, hope he doesn't.
BJ was asking me about him last night.
I think he's an electrician, a journeyman in Ashland. Works out of Ashland. Wife, 2 kids. I think 2 kids.
He's from Ashland originally.
Yeah, is he really? I think
yes,
he's back
because
down
he had
there.
my dad as a music teacher. I remember that when I bought the car, he was like, "You were my music teacher."
We did have a little get together. Good gosh, that's been a decade though. But we had, from Tony Dickens, installer, Kent Thurman, manager, Breezemeister came in, Clint Milas, who had the Corvette, if you remember.
Yeah.
Seth came, Evanson came, just because Evanson, I don't think Evanson ever worked for us, but he was part of it. Tony Perry, people that, kind of what your story was of just people that hung around. You just, you're not employed there, but you're pretty much part of the game, part of the family. So
yeah,
it was good. We haven't done that in a long time. So
yeah, let's see, like Brent grew up really close to me. He lived on Manor Drive when we were kids, and I lived on Maplewood, just on the other side of Rollins Road. I delivered newspapers to his house for 5 years. And he was 2 years older than me. Man, that Civic was awesome.
Yeah. Plus, I'm a white car guy, so that was.
I loved that car so much, man. I thought Brent was the coolest fucking guy in the world, dude. I really did.
Still is.
And he had those Nietzsche shocks on that car. It was another pair of wheels that really got hoarded around our crew.
Yeah.
My buddy, I think Brent traded those wheels to Graham McKay, who had them on a green Accord that was slammed like a 96.
Yep.
My friend Edward Plato bought that car from him. I don't remember what ended up happening with those wheels. Edward also ended up buying the purple and yellow Accord from Ryan Harrigan. Do you remember the one that Goat did?
I do. Yep.
That had the crazy body kit and all that stuff. It was Ben McVeigh's before that. And it was Seafoam Green.
Yep.
And before that, I think it was James Moyer's.
Yep. That was one of his originals. Yep.
Yes.
Before he moved on. He moved on to a Lexus or something like that.
Yes.
An Acura, something that
no,
was too.
It was an ES300.
Yeah.
You guys did the install.
We did a competition in that one, too. That one, Breezemeister did an amazing job in that.
The Lexus emblem in the trunk was on a hydraulic, I think, or maybe it was electric. I think it was a hydraulic, though, that lifted up and had the amps underneath it.
Yeah.
I don't remember what amps were in there.
All precision power.
I think it was all PPI stuff.
Have to be. If Breezemeister did it. Jeff Breezemeister, who we keep talking about. So.
Yeah.
And he's doing phenomenal, too. He's in St. Louis with his own audio-video company, too.
What was he up to these days?
I should know the name of his company, but him and Jamie are still married, 1 kid, I believe. Doing good. I mean, we're all busy now.
What's Corey doing? You talked to Corey?
Corey, ironically, is in Kansas City working at the very same place I mentioned, SFD, which is Santa Fe Distribution. And so he's still in the car audio world, but you'll never, again, any car shop that needs items puts a purchase order in, and then we just ship it. So it's a distributorship level. So he actually works there, doing good. His brother Jeff's down here in Ashland. And
see, these are the questions I love to ask, man, because I wonder about people sometimes.
Thanks to Facebook, you can catch up with people. And I won't say I talk to them daily, but it's just nice to see their posts and if they do something special. So.
I'm definitely friends with a lot of these people on Facebook, and then some people just don't post as much or whatever. They're just not as active, or you just aren't looking all the time. But it's always good to like just be like, oh yeah, that guy, that's awesome.
It's just good to check.
Just one of the craziest conversations we have about this like same kind of like collective of people is the Attorney General, Andrew Bailey, used to work at Sound Performance. Like, the guys that worked in the back of that shop, I mean, it was a ridiculous crew of people, like Mikey Waldrop and Tracy, and then, like, Bailey.
Yep.
And I remember Danny was, like, showing me footage of him talking one day. He was like, do you know who this is? And I was like, no. And he was like, it's the Attorney General, but you know him.
And we were all different people back then.
Like, oh my God, it's Bailey.
I agree.
Like, I couldn't believe it. I was like, what a weird world we live in. This guy's working in the back of a car stereo shop.
Totally.
15 years ago, and now he's the Attorney General of the state.
More like 20 plus years ago.
To be
clear.
No, for sure. That was 20 years ago. Like when I was a heavy Sound Performance client, these pictures of the black Acura were definitely like 02. Look at these Sneepers, man.
They're still cool looking.
The radii. I messaged Mark Nieper on Instagram, and I let him know, like, I think that your wheel designs like influenced, at least in my hometown, an entire generation.
I agree.
Of children.
They were some of the first to do more cosmetic than performance wheel, but man, half these kids aren't going over 60 mile an hour. What's the point? They just want to look good at 35 mile an hour.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I just, when that boom happened, I remember just being like I have to get involved. Like, I already loved cars from like an early age, and audio, and just like what those worlds merging. But then like, again, like the import boom and like the big wheel boom, like all of those things were just like happening at the right time for me and my friends, and I've had one or two vehicles ever that haven't had like an aftermarket set of wheels.
Same here.
I had to recone my W7s because I've had them in like 5 different cars.
And they just keep reconing. They don't die.
The foam deteriorates before the speaker motors will blow out because, they're just so well built. And I still have my 03 Aviator. I don't know where the key is for it right now.
But it's there.
I think my 2-year-old grabbed it, and I don't know if he put it in the trash. I don't know what he did with it. But gone. I'm going to have to call the locksmith to come like put a new ignition in that car because I don't know where the key is.
Sorry,
it's gone. And I never leave that car locked either, and for some reason it's locked. One of the kids was definitely playing around in it. That's like what these things turn into now. Like my big, nice like leather couch, my surround sound downstairs, like you can't have that shit with like a 6-year-old and a 2-year-old, man.
No. Kids change the game. I get it.
I had to take the big, nice sofa. I took it to the other studio in St. Louis because it was literally just a trampoline.
Yeah.
Yeah.
An expensive trampoline too.
Dude, I'm just like,
I know.
What's the point of this? It's a catch for like cereal and yogurt. It's not even
magnet.
It's not even a seat anymore. It's so bad.
Kids are precious.
So tell me what. We talked about Pro Street and stuff, and that's great. I miss those days a lot. And just obviously, I feel like, especially like with my occupation, just like the way that my life has kind of segued, I owe my 17-year-old self so much,
Hovering around audio. I get it. Right.
When it just, I just really, man, if I hadn't have been so overly interested, I would not be sitting here.
Same here. Like I was telling before, age 18, I could care less about my prereqs. All I want to do is get into the boom cars, and man, I can't even tell you what I did to get to Kansas City and get in the mix.
Yeah, I almost, my parents were like, you start looking at schools, and I'm like, looking at my can I do the car stereo installer certification stuff and like do that instead? Like I think I'd almost rather do that.
And it was good for a decade, but after a decade you need to get out.
Well, and the manufacturers adapted the platforms. You know what I'm saying? They started making the speaker installs look cool, and they started putting, like my Mercedes is, Burmester stuff in it. There's a subwoofer built into the center console.
And just to,
you know,
to expand on that, there's also that time correction, which time correction for me was the epitome of audio. If you truly were chasing a good sounding system, but I got a new Ford truck, it's got it in there. Your Mercedes has it in there where you can switch into surround and move that sweet spot around. Which Joe consumer doesn't care, but they have no idea how advanced that was for us to put together with aftermarket equipment. And now you get that from the day you roll off the lot.
Yeah.
Which is
well, and again,
bonkers.
just the comparison that was so night and day between what manufacturers were putting in the cars from the factory versus what you could go and spend a couple $100s in those days at one of those shops and get, even if you just replaced your speakers.
Oh, yeah.
It was crazy how much better it sounded.
And the manufacturers figured that out. They could buy that in bulk. And, let's even just to say this, even some of the dealerships back then would just instantaneously pull the head unit out and give you an aftermarket head unit. So
well, I mean, even like at Sound Performance, they had Makosh next door, and that's what they did. They had customer requests for that stuff, and they were sending cars over to Sound Performance every day.
Same thing with remote starts. That was a huge thing around the same time. I can't tell you how many we did for said dealerships. So they'd send over 5 a week, and when you bought your brand new car, they'd upcharge you for whatever we charged them, and you're getting it rolling off the lot with a remote start. That was huge back then.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. It's wild, man. Just because now now I just I'm just gonna start my car with my phone. It's something you don't really I
start
think
mine with
about.
my app now. Isn't that crazy?
When all that stuff's going on, I mean, nobody had I'm gonna say nobody, but I mean 5% of people had cell phones then.
Totally.
Versus 110%.
Oh my gosh.
Literally everybody has a phone. Some people have two.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
And quality phones too, not just something that's going to dial. I mean, we can check weather on ours.
My first cell phone I bought in 2000. It was like a Nokia 5100 series that had the worm game on it.
Yeah.
And I could, the different faceplates and stuff. And I thought it was the greatest thing in the world. I couldn't believe how great that was. And something else I was going to ask you too, and this is just amazing. So you had, me and my wife we have our second Odyssey now.
Nice.
We've got the current generation. We've also had an 03.
Yep.
You had the original.
Yep. 98 Honda Odyssey. I still have it. It sits at home.
You still have this car?
Dude, not only do I have it, my wife's going to hear this, and she hates it.
Please.
Unfortunately, it's like the dog car, but there is Sony ES in it. There's mini disc in it.
It still has the mini disc player.
100%,
Fuck.
It's still the same time correction that we're talking about.
Danny, did you hear what he just said? Did you hear what he just said?
All Sony
He
amps
still
in
has the car. It still has the MD player in it.
Well, and it just sits. It's a shame because it smells like dog. It's my dog car. It's my runaround. But I can't. It was one of the first. It was the first car that I ever bought, brand spanking new. And I'm just not gonna let go of it. Lord knows I had that on 18s and 20s, and it's. If you saw it now, you'd be sad.
God, it made minivans so cool, dude.
It was awesome. I'm glad you remember
the mini
that.
disc player for me was like. I think you're the only person I've ever definitely the only car I've ever seen with one installed. But even at the time, when the year or two that that kind of came around and was viable.
Yeah.
I may have seen one other car in a magazine that had an MD player in it. What made you decide to do that other than you had access to everything?
I was a Sony fan.
Yeah.
That first company I worked with was CPS, and they were a Sony dealer. So I was always Sony. And really, if you really want to get into deep worms of it, Sony's one of the best signal noise ratio, one of the cleanest equipments out there. Alpine's good. There's other stuff, but Sony in my opinion, it can't be beat. So, at the time, mini disc was I was tired of skipping discs. So that buffer that it has, that it will never skip on you. So I love that. And then at the same time, I'm getting into DJing. So it's I wound up taking everything I had and everything I was using on, I'd walk into DJ with these huge cases of CDs and I'd be pulling one CD out to play one track. So the funny thing is, it made my life so much easier by saying, okay, great. Instead of walking in with literally 8 cases of 60 CDs deep, I'm literally just pulling out the 1 or 2 songs I'm going to play from a particular disc, putting it on MD, and then making that MD of just disco. This one just R&B. This one slow song. So that made me leap forward on just convenience because I went from racking in all kinds of stuff that would literally take a dolly to get into, and now I'm walking in with literally something that's the size of a briefcase. I'm literally walking in with my whole, MD collection, and I DJ'd off MD for until iPods came out.
Crazy.
Yeah, it was cool.
You were DJing
Plus,
with
no
mini
skipping
discs.
too. So some of my dance floors, they'd stick me up on a stage. If somebody got on the stage with me and they hit the stage too hard, I'm skipping the disc. And everyone put up with it, but it was just nice to be one of the few DJs that never had a skip disc ever. And
how did you begin DJing? And also, I remember specifically, and we used to do this as like a joke. You used to have your name in the phone book in the white pages, published as DJ Fat White Boy, or was it just Fat White Boy?
Just Fat White Boy in the phone book, and to this day, that's still my Remax number 57. I won't give the number out, but let's just say that's still my number. So it was just fun. It's you know what? It was a business address. I mean, I have a business.
I thought it was one of the cleverest things, in an era where like that kind of thing wasn't really like a thing, like.
Yep.
This guy's got his business name. It just says Fat White Boy.
Absolutely.
That's hilarious.
I get so many prank calls. Some people who would try to,
for sure.
Do stuff like, how fat are you? And some people are just honest, like, I saw Fat White Boy in the book. What is this? And it would kind of give me an opportunity to say I'm a DJ. And
right.
So it's a legit business name. I had to pay, business license for it. So why not have it in there?
How long have you... You're still DJing now?
No, I quit.
No, not really.
I quit.
Well, when did that begin for you though? And like, what was the career like for you?
Let's go back to Kansas City. I'm there at 19. Started bouncing in bars just because I was physically large, rugby player. And one night, one of the DJs had to take the night off. I filled in for him and kind of caught the bug. Soon thereafter, within about a year's time, another friend of mine who was actually also in the car audio business named Dennis Fitzgerald out of Blue Springs. The world of karaoke came up. So, one thing turned into, wow, we could make a lot of money with this. So we wound up buying a bunch of those laser discs back in the day.
Yes.
And invested, I don't know, a couple grand.
Discs.
And, I'm 20 years old, 22, max, making crazy dollars. I mean, just straight cash every week, doing 2 or 3 gigs, on a Tuesday, Wednesday, Saturday, that type of stuff. So, at 20 years old, I really thought life was easy. It's like, you're making $700-800 a week or, $1,000 a week. It was like, why is this?
That's a lot of money.
Life's not that hard, people. What do you, So
yes.
Those were easy days, though. So
it's funny, like when the path finds you.
We caught that niche and seized an opportunity, and even it just turned into a karaoke MC. You're just running the equipment, letting letting other people sing, but it just became fun, and you get to be an MC. You know how to read energy of a crowd, and just kind of keep people, both good and bad, continuing a good time, if you will. So that was kind of the way I really got into it. And then, from there you start DJing bars, DJing events, slowly but surely started to, once I came back down here, I was still doing it. Did karaoke here for a long time, and then started to get into the wedding DJ side, and then just exclusively went into big dollar events, if you will.
What bars were you playing here back then?
Smokehouse. Johnny's Beanery was 11 years for me with a karaoke show at Johnny's Beanery. Various other places that would just hire us once, twice, TPs, not to be confused with Mike Mazzacco, who ran that show. I could name, I hate to say hundreds, but other bars would just have us for a one night here, one night there.
Yeah.
Bars that aren't around anymore.
Man, TPs was
TPs
great.
was the best. It was
Smokehouse was
that was
awesome.
Trish and Hoss and and then started to, obviously gave up on karaoke. Beanery was my last kind of karaoke gig. It was fun, but I'd grown into, straight DJ then. So you start, I did DJ Shattered, as you might remember. That was fun. That was a lot of fun for a while. So, and then back to my personal gigs where I got just tons of Christmas parties, local, people that would hire me for weddings, It was fun. Weddings are a lot harder than you think, but it's a lot of fun because everyone comes to have a good time. You just have to figure out how to make it happen. And of course, it's more the music, you got to know your music, period. But you also have crowd control and making proper announcements and making sure the crowd knows that, ladies and gentlemen, in a few moments, we're going to be having our cake cutting ceremony. Please make sure you have, a beverage in hand because there will be toast. Those kind of things. It's just juggling the energy of a crowd. So I did that for decades.
Yeah.
So.
The dossier of songs you have to have for a wedding too. There's certain things that are required. You got to show up with Electric Slide. And,
YMCA. I Will Survive. We could go on that. But like, if I had $1 for every time I've heard those songs. But they still get crowds going, man.
Oh yeah, no, and it's that's just cultural celebration music that's just burnt into.
It's what they want to hear.
So yeah, for sure. So you go from doing Pro Street, do you go into real estate after that? What's in between? Is there something in between?
Working at Pro Street, I had a lot of free time just because I did. And, there's a backstory where I'm born and raised in Fayette. I've got a farming background. My dad was a farmer, and we had a lot of acreage down in the bottoms. And after the '97 flood, damaged a lot of our land. And I'm glad that my dad decided that let's sell this. So I'm so glad that he made that decision, because if he were to pass, and I'm not a farmer, Tim.
Yeah.
So let's just say, and I worked real hard not to be a farmer.
You would have had to figure that out. So.
I was born and raised right, but yet I just don't like manual labor. That's a lot of work. So back to my story, I guess. So, at the time I was, 27, something like that, old enough I needed to get some shit together, if you will, and took my real estate license, sales license, got it, passed. Still didn't really want to get into real estate, and then wound up jumping in and got my broker's license. So I got both my sales and broker's license before I was age 28. So specifically just to handle that one transaction, to make sure that we didn't, just give it to some agent and they would make 3% on it. So one thing led to another. We sold the family farm. Actually, we traded it for like property, got a bunch of rentals, and that deal was done. But here I am with dual licenses and nothing to do, and stepped in, started working for Don Emery at Remax, Remax Boone Realty, and then here I am 26 years later, still never left the company and been my own agent for a long time, and it's just it's fun. I love what I do.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, did the $2 bill thing. I have some of these with me because I've accumulated them myself. Over the years, I've never bought a home from you. I don't know exactly if, they were, I acquired these in change somewhere, and I'm like, oh, it's an Aaron Rose stamp.
That's funny.
But when did you decide to start... marketing yourself with stamping roses on $2 bills?
Every bit of 20 plus years ago, 25 maybe, I don't know. My grandma used to give me $2 bills. It's just 200 pennies, but it's super special, So when you got somebody with two kids, you give them $2 bills to put in their piggy banks, they hang on to it forever. And I can't even tell you how awesome it is. You're showing me that. Let me see the stickers on that, because I want to show you, because so notice the sticker you have. Notice I've changed stickers. Yeah. So this was definitely given out anywhere between 2011 and about 2015. And those are the same sticker. Yep. Versus, every time I go through them, I get them about $2,000 at a time, and get them crispy from the bank. And, I just changed
So you can get these stamped from the bank like this?
No, technically, and it's illegal to stamp money.
That's what I thought.
But I don't. Start that paperwork, if you will, Mr. Feds. No, but it's the sticker that I put on is just to signify that it came from me, and it's just kind of a little marketing. I won't say marketing ploy, but I can't tell you how many times I've been in a random, West Lakes aisle 6, and some guy that I don't even know runs up to me and he's grabbing for his wallet. I'm like, what's going on here? And sure enough, he's pulling something out. He's like, you gave this to me, and I don't even remember. So
no, you created a whole thing, and maybe I did run into you one time and you gave me one or something.
I give them away a lot. So,
yeah. I imagine that I acquired one of them that way. I know for a fact I got one just in a change transaction at the gas station or something.
Good to know. Good to know.
And I was like, this is an Aaron Rose $2 bill.
It's up to them if they want to recirculate it, but yours. I can't. No, that's a new one. You're up. You're $6 up now, man.
Yes.
It's 600 pennies, my friend.
$6 and Rose dollars.
Back to that story, though. I can't even tell you how many people have, got it in a frame or something. I don't know. And plus, when you get them from the bank, you get them in sequential order, so it's kind of cool. You pull out all the cool numbers.
That is cool.
I've sold a house where, can't remember, the last numbers were 712, so I gave him the one that ended in 712.
Was the address of the house or something?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And a good friend of mine, I saved 420 for him because you know why. So, you just get to pull the cool bills out.
Yeah.
So it's just nice to get handed one that's crispy. But yeah, it's just one of the little fun things. I don't know. It makes people smile.
Yeah. That's awesome, man.
I'm glad you like it. I'm glad you threw that out there. That's awesome.
It's one of those things. I was like, I can actually bring this. It's awesome. Obviously, it's a talking point, but and obviously, the point of the podcast is just get these little stories out there. You know what I'm saying? People know about the money.
I wonder how many people listening to the podcast have a $2 bill. So.
Yeah. No, and that maybe people will be on the hunt for them now. You never know, man. We could be starting a whole thing here with it. So
still only worth $2 though.
It is.
My stamp did not increase its value.
It's fun. It's fun though.
I love it.
It's fun.
Thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah. How old are your children now?
Daughter's soon to be 14. Son just turned 12.
Wow.
So we've got
teenagers.
They are, and yep, they're good kids, man. I'm proud of them.
That's great, man. That's great. Mine are 2 and 6 now.
Ooh,
and I mean, I'm kind of like you. I waited, until I feel like I figured out enough about life and career, and I felt responsible enough to like take care of another human
smart.
before I decided to like bring them into the world.
I agree.
But having kids is like obviously like the best thing in the world. It's amazing.
It's hard to explain. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. It's warm and fuzzy and heartbreaking at the same time. They're a lot of work.
Oh yeah. Well,
a lot of your freedom is gone.
I'm getting one out of diapers now, and I've still got to go through, the headaches that you're probably going through right now with,
They're
teenagers.
good headaches, though. I mean, just wait till they cold shoulder you, or you're staring at the back of her phone the whole time or whatever. But she's a good kid. So both my kids are awesome.
That's
I'm
awesome,
happy.
man. That's awesome. What else are you doing these days besides like real estate and stuff? What's going on with you in like your free time? I know that you were the first person I ever saw with a Ducks Unlimited sticker.
I'm still a Ducks Unlimited. I've been a duck hunter all my life.
Yeah.
That's all I do. I don't hunt deer. I don't hunt anything else. Just ducks and goose. My dad took me when I was a kid, so it's just kind of that's been my thing. So
it's nostalgic for you, and
it's just
all
I know to do. It's my
Yeah.
passion. I hunted yesterday. I'll hunt tomorrow. I'm lucky to have that same farmland I talked about. Has a big lake on it that
Awesome.
The flood gave me, and let's just say I'm very blessed. So
There's no lake there before the flood.
Nope.
Huh?
And after the lake, it was 97 acres. Think about that for a second. 97 acres of standing water. So that's a lot. It's bigger than most of the parks. Anyway, I'm very blessed.
Wow.
So that kind of was a blessing. We peeled off the rest of the marketable acreage and traded that out, but I always retained that and some other land in the hills. So, very blessed. Other than that, duck hunting, Chiefs. I'm a huge Chiefs guy. I'm sure you know.
Yes.
And really, real estate's always great. I love what I do, but this is also that winter market where, you're slower. In case this doesn't air soon, we're recording this, December 19th, 2023, a couple days before Christmas, and this is my time. So even though I'm still busy with real estate, but, between ducks and Chiefs and family, this is a good time for me to not focus on my business as much. I'm not representing clients, but at the same token, I'm getting ready to peel tomorrow for a week-long vacation, and where my kids and I and wife are all going to be at the Chiefs game on Christmas Day.
How long have you're a season ticket holder, yes? How long have you been a season ticket holder with Chiefs?
Ooh. I'll answer that question by saying my first game was in '92 when I was in Kansas City. So I'm 22 years old, went to a Raiders Chiefs Monday Night Football game, and it absolutely just lit a passion. So I've been going ever since. And, I got to say it this way, too. At this exact time, Chiefs are good. The whole world's watching. I've went through a lot of years where they sucked. But I'm still faithful. It's my team, and it's just kind of neat to see other people on the bandwagon, and I'm very proud to be a Chiefs fan.
It's really interesting for me being born in Columbia and living a lot of my life in Columbia, but, lots of friends on both sides of the boundary areas of the state.
Yep.
And in my house, like my dad's always been a big Chiefs fan. We watched the Chiefs. We were Chiefs fans growing up and stuff. And then, like my senior year of high school, the Rams were awesome.
And they won the bowl.
And like a lot of people became Rams fans.
Can't blame them.
You know what I'm saying? And like people were kind of like make a choice. I'm not gonna stop being a Chiefs fan because I want to be like a Rams fan or whatever. You know what I'm saying? But in Columbia, you get that interesting blend of people that are like, you get the division between Kansas City and St. Louis people, where it's always like kind of this like quiet rivalry anyways, you know what I'm saying? But when it comes to football, I always amplify stuff. And then, of course, like, the Rams like pack up and go to Los Angeles and all of that stuff. And then the Chiefs get awesome.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
It took a long time for that last statement, though. Because even at the time that the Rams, got going and got good, I can't blame anybody for jumping on a team that actually got them to the bowl. It almost continued to fuel my fire because I'm a Chiefs fan. I don't care win, lose, or draw. I'm still faithful. So
man, I think if you've ever been to a game at Arrowhead,
it's like no other.
It's different, man.
I agree. And until you have gone, you just
And even not even just the game, the experience of going 100%. As soon as you get around the exit to go park your car. If you have to exit right of when you're on I-70, Arrowhead is to the left.
Yep.
When you're coming into the city.
Yep.
A lot of times you got to like go down one of those roads, like
Just to get
somewhere, and just get your car parked, and just walking over, the George Brett overpass.
Yep.
And then you get into the parking lot, and all the tailgating kind of starts. And the closer you get, the crazier it gets.
And the barbecue cloud, and I know it's
you can't go anywhere else and experience
I agree.
that.
And
There's places that like have their own thing, but it's not Arrowhead.
And I want to add, to me, I feel it's super special because that's all you're going to do in that area. I do love, and I don't want to get off on a tangent, but them talking about taking Kaufman down to the downtown. Now I'll step over and say it's amazing what Cardinals have done in that area, and what is it, Cardinal City or whatever that Redbird City is, and so for them to want to take that down to KC, I get it, I understand,
right?
What
they do with like Ballpark Village.
That's what I was trying to say. Thank you. I'm not a baseball fan, anyways. But my ramble is back to my point is I really feel like when you come to that area, Kaufman or Camaro Head, as I like to call it, you're going to a game. That's all there is. It's just parking, and there's a stadium. There is no other run over to have a beer. Or
Yeah.
So,
no, that's like the idea. It's not like you're there to go spend money, which is a good thing for in St. Louis, like what they're doing with the soccer team right now. That's really helping that area of the city.
Agree.
You know what I'm saying? Like get a lift. But there's certain things too that are just like tradition's important when it comes to certain things, and like what they've done. And I get like maybe trying to like move the baseball team, like, oh, we couldn't move the football team or like whatever. It's going to a game out there is, it's fun.
It's experience.
Like if I remember the first Royals game I ever went to.
Good.
The first one I ever went to. And I definitely remember the first Chiefs game I ever went to. And I didn't get to go to a Chiefs game until I was like 19 or 20 years old.
Yeah.
And it was amazing.
It was a totally different experience. I know.
Playing the Broncos. Yeah. It was like a contentious year. People were getting beat up in the stairwell. It was wild.
It's NFL, buddy.
Yeah. It was really wild. And like stuff like that happens, whatever. If you want to see like fans beat each other up, go to an Eagles game, But like,
Raiders.
Yeah. That was another. I went to a Raiders game once where there was parking lot altercations with people that did not end well for the guys wearing silver and black.
Yeah.
But it's such an interesting thing, man. Like one of the big things like that we're talking about today, is like these like little miniature, like they're like mini cultures.
Totally.
Like game day at Arrowhead, the car stereo world in the late 90s, duck hunting with your dad, and just like all of these like little. Missouri is like one of the only places. I even feel like Columbia, we're really lucky to be an educational center.
Agree.
With enough like urban infrastructure to kind of like support a lot of like arts and all of these types of things, but still have all of this being very rurally saturated.
Agree.
You know what I'm saying? I think Columbia is like one of the only places in the country where like you could like get like great duck hunting in, go float on a river and get your law degree.
Absolutely.
And have all of them be like top-notch experiences compared to like anywhere else in the world that you could do that.
Agree. Yeah, we're lucky. With cancer institutes and medical professionals and or orthopedic. I don't need to go down the medical route. I don't think I'm qualified for, but we've got a lot of people that will fly here to get their procedures done.
My wife got breast cancer at 36 years old, triple negative breast cancer. Well, we have Siteman in St. Louis, man, and they really did an amazing job.
Good. Glad you got through that.
Me too, man. Yeah. Me too. One of the roughest, we talk about like preparation, like waited to have my kids, like waited to do the stuff, like businesses, like you don't plan.
You can't
for what happens when that happens.
I hope I don't forget a term, but nor do you know what the protocol is for that.
Yeah.
You're there to support, but what do you do other than just be a cheerleader? And that's probably all you can do.
Yeah.
It's just, I'm glad you got through it, man.
Yeah. Oh man, thank you.
I was unaware, so sorry.
No, it's not something like I broadly talk about all the time, but you mentioned it, and I couldn't be in more, agree with you more, personally or, whatever. It's, I was so grateful for those people, man.
I'm just glad it's behind you.
When she got like finished from treatment, I I went and bought like $200 worth of cookies and cupcakes for like all the ladies and the couple guys that work at Siteman. Like I was crying giving them to them.
Totally. Hey, give your wife back.
Yeah. And I mean, she got lucky. She found it early, but I mean, it was triple negative breast cancer, really aggressive,
That's
so it moved quick. Happened right after our second kid was born, too. I mean, she had the tumor while she was pregnant with him, so.
At the same time, she's being a mom. That's got to be tough.
Yeah.
Man.
It was a really, again, just, it was weird to be dealing with that kind of stress while you're also celebrating the birth of a kid. It's confusing.
Totally.
To be going through that stuff.
Going through, that's got to be crazy.
Yeah. So. No, it was wild, man. It was wild, dude. Yeah, definitely an experience that like it gave me a lot of perspective.
It'll make you grow up pretty quick, man.
Yeah. And again, like I make records for a living, and like sitting down and having conversations with people is like a part of like my work regimen. Wasn't something like I don't think I would have been interested in maybe before like that happened. It is one of those experiences that like. You want to take time to like sit down and do stuff like this, I want to have these conversations with people.
Good.
It's like, it's important to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
To like, I don't know why, but something became aware in me. And I think, that's experiences like that make you realize, like these are the things that are really, really important.
Absolutely.
The people that we meet along the way, they're important.
They are.
Even if you're not, I don't talk to you often at all.
Yeah, agreed.
But when I sat down and thought about like a list of people that I really wanted to like talk to, like who's influenced me, who, if I hadn't have met them, you know what I'm saying, may have my line had gone this way instead of this way. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I do.
Absolutely 100% you're one of those people, and I'll tell you why. Again, like Pro Street, like just like having like one of those, having that place to go, that was just like feeding and nurturing.
Cool place to
that
hang.
Curiosity and the wonderment. And like literally, man, I thought that car stereo was like magic.
Agree. It is. It still is.
It is. Yeah. It's and just all of the stuff in general. I'm talking into like a piece of metal that's got a foam cup around it, and it turns the vibrations of our voice into an electrical signal. That's fucking magical.
Agree. Yeah.
I think all of this stuff that I do every day in some way, shape, or form I'm so lucky to get to do everything that I get to do. And I just think that like it can be like one tiny little moment that just like takes you down, an entirely different path. You can think of like being like 8 years old and being with my dad at Maplewood Barn Theater. We used to do summer theater every year. And the techs out there would make me wire mics.
Good.
And like taught me about the soundboard. And like when he didn't want to like run sound, he just wanted to do the lights, he'd let me run the board. Yeah. It was just 3 mics on stage.
Which is cool though. I love being behind a board.
Yeah. But it nurtured something inside of me that I would have been like feeding sticks to the pigs, up at the park. I wouldn't, I was a kid. Yeah. I didn't know what I was interested in.
But you also, I feel like you got behind the board. I mean, you get to, it's one thing to go to an event. It's another thing to kind of be help with the production of the event.
Yeah.
So
no, and I felt important. I felt like, if I screw this up, like these people are going to be like disappointed. And like, there was an element to that though. Like it's on me. If I don't, if I don't do my job right, everyone's going to not enjoy this.
Totally. And they might not know who did it wrong, but they'll know something happened.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But, I think, again, it takes like, there's a cultural aspect that's required, like, you guys are running a business. It was a very niche business that like had, it had a certain amount of time on it, and again, like kids like stumbling in and out, like smelling like weed and like distracting like the other customers may not have been like the best thing for Pro Street at the time, but like you guys never like kicked us out or discouraged us from like being around there. You always like answered questions and like, we would come up there with those big eyes and like, that's the stuff we were going to ask for Christmas and not get.
Agree.
And I just really appreciate you being that, but it had to be somebody, but it was you, that's awesome. I really appreciate that.
I'm honored you're saying that, and I'm not trying to degrade what you said. Thank you, but you have to realize at age 27 or 29, I'm excited about it too.
Yeah.
So when there's a new amp and you're excited about it, I'm like, oh, you read about that? Check this out. Do you know this spec? And look what you could do with it. And thank you for saying that, but you're coming to a guy that's equally geeked out about it,
Yeah.
So it's kind of fun to have anyone that shares the same passion. And frankly, that was a huge passion for 20 years of my life,
Yeah.
Still it is, but it's those are days gone by for
Not
me.
your professional passion, but I mean, yeah, man, it's something that's. You still have the van with the
I do.
mini disc player in it, dude.
With subs in it as we speak, my friend. So, and again, I love my wife, Jory. She's going to hate hearing this because she wants to get rid of it. I'm like, there's no reason to get rid of it. I can,
Yeah, for what?
Yeah, what's the point? I mean, taxes are nothing, and it's just a dog car, but it'll boom.
Yeah. What kind of speakers? What kind of subs?
Ooh, man. MB Cord up front. What are my subs? Gosh. Something long throw. I can't remember, man. It's been too many years.
Yeah.
All Sony amps. I mean, it's still. What's funny, though, I should know this, actually. I think they are JBL. I can't remember. Funny thing is, my subs actually dual purpose because I would pull my sub cabinet and I had amplifiers from my DJ equipment. So I'd have true car subs, the low Q subs, and that was my subs. So everyone else is rolling these huge, 12 or 15-inch single cabinet. I'm coming in with just a box, a 212 or 215 box, 212s actually, and setting it up and running an 8 ohm amp down at 4 ohm and making it bang. So I had no idea that I'd bring the car audio world into the DJ world, and my shit would hit. I mean, I really would have sub.
I'd considered taking my W7s and using them as studio subs.
If you take them down to 4 ohm, they don't know it's in a studio. They'll almost be too much for here.
Yeah. Oh, dude, the W7s are they're 1 3/4 or they're 3.5 ohm.
Nice.
So you can bridge them down.
Yep.
I think some people have bridged them down to 3/4 of an ohm, I think.
If your amp can take it, it can take it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just fun. Fun stuff.
Well, I'm glad you love it. Thanks for your compliment, man. That's fun.
Yeah.
Pro Street was fun for me, man. I can't believe the podcast was somewhat anchored on that, which those are fun times for me, man. I met a lot of great people and really kind of started my connections in Columbia, because similar to everyone we've been talking about, half of those folks are my clients now, and some of those clients I've sold a house to 12 years ago, and now I've sold them their second house, so it's kind of one of those, a lot of spheres, if you will. So spheres of influence, as they say. So
it just popped into my head too is the Batman car, Nam Tab.
Gosh, why am I not catching this?
Andy Churchill.
Oh, of course.
The black,
oh my God, why would
the
I
black
not know?
Mitsubishi.
Yeah. Andy's doing great, by the way. He's still in town. 2 kids. I keep up with him every once in a while too.
That's
He's
awesome,
on the Christmas
man.
card list. I love you, Andy.
It's wild, man.
I forgot all about it. Was themed Batman. Didn't he have Goat paint that?
Yes.
He had somebody paint it.
I think it was Goat.
One thing I loved about
It was
Goat
metallic flake, but on the
Yes.
hood they didn't flake it.
Yep.
With the Batman
I
logo, they masked it
forgot
off.
about that. Totally.
Yeah.
Were you saying his license plate? What was his license plate?
It was Batman backwards.
Backwards?
It
See?
said Nam Tab.
And see all those little tricks. I totally forgot about. Those are.
Dude, these little things are very vivid to me, and they're all burned in my brain, dude.
Those details have faded out of mine. I remember it now, and Andy's a great guy.
I smoked a lot of weed, dude. I'm not going to forget any of this
All
stuff.
of us lost brain cells.
It's wild, dude.
All of us.
It's wild. I really appreciate this, man. We've been sitting down for a while. I don't think I've got anything else. I would encourage you, though. Is there anything as far as promoting yourself? Do you have anything else going on? Other than people hit me up, buy a house?
I appreciate the opportunity, but no, I'm pretty happy with where I'm at in life. I mean, awesome. I should always pitch my business, but I'm very happy to be a lot of return clients, and let's just say I'm not as hungry as other agents. So thank you for the opportunity. I'm
sure that you'll get a ring or two from this. I certainly
I'm just
hope,
glad
man.
my phone rings. Someday it might not ring.
Thank you
right
for
now
sitting
I'm doing
down
good.
with me, man.
Thank you, Tim. I appreciate it.
Awesome.